Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Death Battle review. Now, I didn't make a prediction video to this one. I was planning to last night, but I didn't get an opportunity to. I was very busy, and it got really late, and I just didn't have the time to edit together a video. However, I'm not really that broken up about it because the results of this death battle were blatantly obvious. This was another squash death battle, but I'm gonna give it an honest look anyway. Sigma versus Ultron. It was meh. I mean, it wasn't really horrible, but it wasn't great either. It was just another perfectly meh squash battle. Like when they had Shao Kahn fight M. Bison. It was a good fight, but you can't take away from the fact that it was what it was. It was a squash match, as Sigma really had no chance in hell against Ultron. And even when I discussed this with one of my friends, privately, even he agreed that once he heard Ultron versus Sigma, he said, yeah, Sigma has no chance in hell. Obviously, Ultron is going to win. And he wasn't wrong. This death battle was just another one-sided affair. And normally, you would expect me to be screaming about it because I've mentioned before how death battle needs to stop doing one-sided matches. But this one was just so perfectly whatever, it's not even worth getting mad about. Yeah, it was a one-sided squash death battle, but really, I mean, it's like, what the hell did you expect? I mean, really, at this point, they're almost becoming common. I mean, this was just another filler death battle. Who cares? And after the horrible abomination that was Sonic versus Mario in their 100th episode, I just kind of don't have much in me to just be so angry about this one. Because, yeah, it's a horrible squash death battle, but what the hell did you expect? I mean, the research and fight was fine, I guess, and the matchup, I guess, makes sense on paper, but when you actually break down the two characters, it falls apart because it's clearly one-sided in Ultron's favor. And it just makes things look unfair for Sigma. This kind of reminded me of when they did Astro Boy versus Mega Man. It was so ungodly one-sided that it makes you wonder, why did they even bother doing it? I mean, really. And it's the same here. I mean, I almost want to say, what does Death Battle have against Mega Man characters, because they seem to like to fuck over Mega Man characters, but then I think back to Zero versus Metal Sonic, and I think, okay, maybe it's not that they hate Sonic characters, it's just that Death Battle has been ignoring my suggestions when I told them they need to hire somebody to look through all their Death Battle requests and separate which ones are retarded and which ones aren't. But clearly they haven't taken that suggestion because, as I've stated before, they took all their death battles and shoved them onto an iPod. It's literally just a checklist. They're not putting any thought into these death battles, and it shows because we end up with more shitty death battles than we end up with good ones. And this is another one. It's just like, who cares? And I know the only reason this death battle happened was because of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. In fact, I bet you if Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite didn't even come out, nobody would have given a shit otherwise, and nobody would have asked for this death battle. It can't be a goddamn coincidence. And that's why in this video, I'm going to be using footage from Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite just to show how see-through Death Battle really is, and how they really don't put thought into anything. And this was another one, and at first it was kind of cute, but now I'm not quite too sure about this whole animation thing of Whiz and Boomstick. I'm probably going to have to get used to it. It's fine at times, but then there's other times where it just becomes a little bit awkward and jarring. But that's whatever. The results was fine despite it being a one-sided fight, and the research was okay, I guess. The fight was fine. I mean, it was your typical 2D, pseudo 3D death battle that didn't really matter at the end of the day. I mean, I'm trying my hardest to think of things to say about this death battle, but it's just really hard. I mean, there's just nothing to this death battle. It's just so inoffensively meh. I mean, it's not complete god-awful garbage like Mario vs. Sonic or Naruto vs. Ichigo, but at the same time, it's not great like Nightwing vs. Daredevil or any great death battle like that. And yeah, I mean, this might end up being a short one because there's not really a lot to say about this death battle. I mean, I went through this past 3 weeks barely even acknowledging that this death battle existed because it's like, at the end of the day, who cares? I mean, who really wanted this at the end of the day? I mean, I can understand why people would want this, but at the same time, I have to think, why though? Because it's a one-sided squash match. And as I've said, it's hard to get entertainment when it's obvious who's going to win, and that's exactly what happened. As soon as I heard that Ultron's body was made from adamantium, I'm like, okay, yeah, game over. Sigma has no chance in hell. And I know Death Battle, they tried their best to hide the fact that this was a one-sided squash match by saying, well, actually, the real fight came down to the virus that these two have. But at the end of the day, it was irrelevant because Ultron's virus and CPU is so goddamn overpowered. It took a virus that was specifically made to stop Ultron just to stop him. Once again showing how helpless Sigma was against Ultron. Now the fight itself was fine, and usually I'll give a death battle a break if the fight itself is fine, but the fight also wasn't really anything special. It was fine. I mean, I guess I would put this on the same level as Shao Kahn versus M. Bison. Or Blanca versus Pikachu. Yeah, it's one-sided, you know it's one-sided, and you know Shao Kahn and Blanca's opponent has no chance whatsoever against them, but it's entertaining enough to where you just don't care. And that's what I would say about this death battle. It's just not offensive enough to get mad at, but it's not really good enough to praise and say, oh yeah, you gotta watch this death battle. I mean, for example, Sephiroth vs. Virgil is an amazing death battle that I would say, watch it. It's really good. But with Ultron vs. Sigma, all I can say is, I mean, if you like Marvel and Mega Man, go for it, but just so you know, it's a one-sided squash match. Don't expect too much entertainment out of it, outside of it being perfectly, inoffensively okay. This is just a really safe death battle. And yeah, that's all I can really say about it. I give this death battle a 5 out of 10. It's perfectly meh. It's not complete garbage, but it's not amazing either. It's just meh. Fuck it. Who cares? Yeah, there are some parts about it that I'm sure I probably could scream about, but I'm not even gonna bother doing that because, again, meh. Who cares? 5 out of 10. Don't watch this death battle. It's skippable. I mean, unless you just have to watch it because you're a huge Marvel fanboy, you could skip this death battle and you're not really missing anything. Just like you could skip Hercule Satan versus Dan Hibiki and not miss anything. It's just whatever. Just don't bother. And with that, that's my review of Ultron vs. Sigma. And regarding who's fighting next,
see that? Already ahead. Came right out of the blocks with a winner here, Chris. Now we'll just paste this very carefully into the book. And that's where it belongs. Now this is a loaded handgun. And what we're gonna do now is kill ourselves because this is horrible.
Couldn't we just stop philatering?
Too late.